So welcome everybody to today's podcast. My name is Jim Hodges. I'm Research Director at Heavy Reading, and I'm going to be hosting today's session. So in today's podcast, we're really going to be discussing things like why cross-domain end-to-end orchestration of complex, multi-vendor, multi-technology cloud services. It's really becoming something that's critical for our service providers to achieve, to really achieve network and service agility, and really also to have a positive impact on customer experience and also reduced operational cost. So joining me today from Amdocs is Meni Konordi. Meni is the Amdocs Open Network Head of Sales. So welcome, Meni. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Before we get started, maybe you could tell us a little about your role at Amdocs.
Yes, hello. Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me here today. So I'm leading the Amdocs Open Network Solutions and sales for EMEA and APAC. Everything relates to our OSS, orchestration, NFV, 5G, automation, and a lot of interesting stuff are happening around this area. So I will be happy to share this with you and our listeners.
Great, thank you. So many, obviously, service providers have been working on moving their networks and their services to the clouds, I would say, for about at least 7 years now. And I think while real progress has been made, their cloud networks are really continuing to evolve to support, new developments. Things like I'm thinking of here is really the need and the push to support low latency, disaggregated services running at the edge, which in a 5G world is really focusing now on a new services-based architecture to support slice-based services. So to me, it's clear that to meet these requirements, service providers are really going to have to move and adopt things like zero-touch, automated end-to-end service lifecycle operations. And I think this is going to enable them to deliver these complex services faster, but I think it's also going to help them to monitor the performance of these services and meet their customers' demands. Would you agree with that, Meni?
Yeah, definitely, Jim. It's a lot about this new software-driven programmable network creates a real opportunity for service providers to have a more software-like type of processes with their virtualized and cloudified network. But it also adds a lot of complexity because you have still your current network to manage, your physical elements, and you have your virtualized infrastructure, and now you have cloud network functions that are coming with 5G and containerized type of functions, and you need to manage this end-to-end hybrid network seamlessly and drive this zero-touch experience you talked about. And this is a challenge, and a lot about end-to-end service orchestration aspects are addressing this zero-touch target and how to really manage it across these physical, virtual, and cloud network functions to enable this end-to-end service lifecycle management.
Okay, good points. Maybe we should step back a little bit. Maybe we can talk a little bit about what you mean when you say specifically zero-touch and cross-domain end-to-end service orchestration.
So when we talk about zero-touch, we basically aim at a few key processes, operational processes, fulfillment processes, or closed loop trouble to resolve processes that are now being done in a semi-automated or manual manner across the silos of a network. And when we evolve to a zero-touch operation or zero-touch service management, it means that you can actually run a lot of these processes without any human interaction. So you talk or your processes or your digital layer from a customer perspective will interact with the programmable network, with the controllers, and will drive these changes of the network element and functions without anyone need to actually interact through a network management system or a manual user interface. Of course, for the end user and the customers, it will change the way they interact today and apply changes to their services and to their network resources.
And it's fair to say, I think that these capabilities really enable service providers to kind of drive the next wave of service innovation. Would that be a fair statement as well?
Definitely, definitely. So you can really launch services much faster in a more standard manner, where then the APIs and the network are, open to drive this type of processes faster, and also enable changes to these services and to these network functions much quicker. So you can introduce service faster, and you can actually change them and adapt them after you launch it really quickly. And we are talking about order of magnitude change from month and even more to a matter of days and weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I have my network functions exposed, available in my catalog, a marketer package it into a commercial offering and launch it through a digital portal to the end customer.
Yeah, and that's clearly the way we're moving. Obviously, even with 5G, with the services-based architecture. The one thing that's interesting to me is from a service provider perspective, some of these specific OSS challenges that are out there associated with it. I mean, we've always seen that networks were fairly complex, whether they're 3G, 4G, or now 5G. But I mean, I think there's obviously, as we look at the impacts from an OSS perspective, I think there are some requirements that are going to change in terms of how, service management, service assurance, how even how I think service providers are going to use OSS systems to help them monetize. Is that something that you're talking to your customers about?
Yeah, definitely. We talk to our customers about how they adapt to a service-driven network, to be able to launch these more innovative services around 5G, as you mentioned, around IoT, to leverage this cloud-based AI, ML-driven type of approach. While the reality is actually they have a lot of silos managed separately with their own OSS and toolset per silo. It's the CPE, the access, the backhaul, the transport, the core, and of course the various value-added services and over-the-top services. Each and one of these domains are its own kind of kingdom, and the journey that needs to happen in order to enable this type of change really requires a change in how they currently manage their network. So, we conducted together a survey, and it's interesting, spanning multiple service providers, and asked them about how they manage their SD-WAN services. And the results are very interesting. We saw that 72% of the responders claim that they have a challenge in the operation complexity of their SD-WAN services that are distributed today across multiple infrastructure, multiple network and cloud domains, across the underlay and the overlay. Many of them, more than half, highlighted that they have 3 or 4 different tools to manage their SD-WAN services. And the promise of SD-WAN was, fully digital to network, ability to manage your VPN and your the customer experience about changes in these VPNs, and a quick launch and adding multiple virtual network services on top. So reality of these operations really impacts the promise. And an end-to-end service and network orchestration, in a way, is the answer to meet a lot of these challenges. It can integrate seamlessly to the SD-WAN controllers, more than one in many cases, to the underlay connectivity management system, to the cloud infrastructure management. It will expose these services in a standard manner to a portal where the enterprise customers can manage their own network. So you see, this type of approach of end-to-end service and network orchestration will enable SD-WAN services to be much more efficient, will be able to enable the end customers a much better experience, and will enable ability to launch easier additional services on top.
Yeah, interesting. The research is interesting because I think on a number of levels, there are 2 things stand out. First of all, SD-WAN, I think, has been successful because it is kind of maybe the first wave of a prototype service that's fully programmable. And that's obviously the future. And I think SD-WAN has been a success because it's something that could be fully programmable and fairly easy to deploy and had obviously immediate benefits. But I think that kind of leads an interesting question or an interesting topic that you just touched on, and that is, even if you go outside the SD-WAN environment, service providers are running cloud and hybrid networks, and it's really going to take these service providers. I mentioned kind of the 7 years we've been sort of started doing this, but it's going to take service providers some time to really kind of operate, move away from operating hybrid physical and virtual network domains. And to me, that's also going to have sort of some impact on how their ability to really manage and operate their network services. Would you agree with that as well?
Yes, Jim. I think we see it in other examples beyond SD-WAN in 5G network slicing, for example. When you want to offer an end-to-end slice that can differentiate on quality of service, that can enable new monetization opportunities by low latency, high reliability, whether it's for enterprise customers that will run their factories remotely, or healthcare verticals, or even consumer that would like to run new innovative gaming, virtual reality type of services. Deploying or enabling this type of service experience requires orchestration and management of multiple domains, your radio access network, your transport, your core. And the reality is, as you said, that these domains are managed differently today, and there needs to be this stitching and translation of a business requirement, a business benefit, a value that you bring to your service, to your customer service, to the various domains, different configuration and parameters that are managed through the domain controllers.
Yeah, and what's interesting for me is the point you just made is that we've taken 5G, we've introduced service-based architecture, and that obviously opens up sort of the cloud domain in terms of programmability. We've done things with SD-WAN, but also now we're also focusing on Open RAN. That's obviously a lot of interest, and what that's kind of doing exactly the same thing. You're kind of opening up the network domain so that you can kind of have a much more programmable radio access network domain than you did in the past. But I think that's interesting too, because I think ultimately we're moving to this model where we'll be able to do closed loop service orchestration for the entire network, the RAN, the core, and the edge. So I think that's really interesting to me. And I think one of the things that does also highlight is kind of this value of things like closed loop service operation. And I'm just wondering, do you see that that's something that's going to be becoming even more important as we do move to Open RAN, service-based architectures, 5G?
Yes, of course. The zero-touch aspects we talked about doesn't stop in how you provision a service or introduce a service. It continues throughout the service lifecycle, and the ability to enable seamless operation of these, cloud-native 5G type of services, and the openness that comes together with the O-RAN approach requires ability to detect problem, to enable a diagnostic of which type of problem and how it impacts the service, then take decision based on policies on what to do and how to handle, this degradation of a service or this issue around capacity, and then actually do or execute the resolution that connects to it. And we in Amdocs like to call this closed loop paradigm the 4 Ds: detect, diagnose, decide, and do. And this is a major shift in how currently trouble to resolve processes are operated. And as you said, it's a journey, and service providers are trying to, for many years, to become much more autonomous in the way they manage their network. And this journey is very much accelerated by the introduction of 5G network and the way that disaggregated network is currently being deployed.
Interesting, and I totally agree with you. The one thing that you have probably much more insight than I do into this is I think that we're definitely in agreement in terms of how the adoption of closed loop service orchestration, cross-domain orchestration is important. One of the things that it's less clear to me is how can service providers really take their existing OSS systems that they've invested so much investment in. How do they, do they have to replace existing OSS systems with a next generation one, or can they evolve? I mean, of course, there's a number of different systems they've deployed, but just kind of generally speaking, do you kind of see that there's sort of an evolutionary approach for some of these service providers to evolve their existing OSS systems?
You touch a very, very important point, Jim. Getting there, it's not every operator is Rakuten, okay, that brings a greenfield, new network which is software driven from day one. A lot of the customers we talk with in North America and Europe and APAC, whether it's Telstra, Vodafone, Verizon, Comcast, and others, they have a reality, which is their existing OSS that is being evolved, as you said, for many, many years. It's managing the current physical network that is being virtualized to a degree. And now they need to manage with the additions of cloud network functions and additional cloudification they are running in their network. They need to manage this new type of network together with the existing one. And their current OSS needs to evolve to what we call a next generation OSS. And in Amdocs, we actually took this and created a service and network automation platform that brings together the existing OSS capabilities and the next generation OSS capabilities on how you automate and orchestrate cross-domain network. We call it NEO. And we treat it very pragmatic because we are there. With many of our customers, we have more than 80 deployment of our OSS worldwide. And we are helping our customers to take this journey because it's not, rip and replace. There is existing reality, existing systems that manages their inventory, billions of objects in the network for, operator like AT&T, together with the fulfillment processes and automation that are already there and, running the mission critical order to activation processes. And of course, the operation and assurance systems. And now we need to bring to this mix new type of services, whether it's SDWAN, whether it's virtual security, whether it's 5G slicing, and you need to make sure all of these existing and next generation new systems are working coherently together.
It's interesting. Can you maybe give us, we're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes, but can you maybe just give us an example of maybe one of your customers that's worked with this system and starting to implement things like cross-domain orchestration capabilities?
Yes, I'll give a few examples. I'll open with SCS. SCS is a satellite provider based in the Netherlands. They have a global network, which is based on the satellite communication network in mid-orbit and high orbit. And what they targeted is to enable fully cloud native infrastructure from infrastructure point of view and also from the end service point of view, SD-WAN network, to enable their end customers to consume from them additional type of services, to manage their network better, and to deploy all of this on Microsoft Azure. So we approached SCS together with Microsoft, took our service and network automation platform, NEO, and enabled an end-to-end service orchestration solution from the top-level interaction with their BSS down through the fulfillment orchestration and through to the network orchestration of their SD-WAN controllers. We worked with Versa, we worked with Fortinet, and other providers to enable a full ecosystem of services for SD-WAN and security services, leveraging a lot of the footprint of Microsoft Azure and their point of presence globally.
Okay.
Yeah, just have another few examples.
Sure. Go ahead.
I know our time is short, but give another example of
lots of time.
There's lots. all the time in the world to talk about these interesting topics, Jim. Another example is a North American customer where we deployed in a joint development mode service and network automation platform and enable network as a service type of an approach. So their enterprise customers can manage their own network through a portal with graphical user interface, drag and drop. They can deploy additional services really faster, and they do it on multiple type of underlay. They have Ethernet network and over fiber, and they have the coax cable-based broadband internet, different type of offering to SMBs, to large enterprises. Some of it comes with a scale of hundreds of sites in an order, if it's a McDonald's or a Taco Bell, and other are more smaller type of deployment. And they, together with us, we developed this platform that enables full automation of the services across the board, both the overlay and the underlay type of services. And maybe the last example I would share with you is an operator in the Philippines where we deployed a network automation layer for their fixed and mobile network. And we are running fully automatically the life cycle of their services, first for enterprise use cases, and now discussing mobile 5G and other type of services.
Yeah, interesting. And to me, this is very encouraging because when I think about in the past, there's been a fair bit of complexity related to OSS systems. And I think one of the things that's important to me is in 5G, we always talk about automation. The need to automate, service provision because of the speed and monitoring service. So it's encouraging to me that now that some of your customers are able to take their OSS systems and add automation to that, this cross-domain orchestration, because that's really going to kind of help them, I think, monetize 5G services as well. So I think it's a pretty interesting time that we're in terms of the evolution of OSS BSS systems, but also they're very much required because of what we're doing to the core and to the edge.
Yeah, definitely. We are running POCs that showcase this type of monetization opportunity, and an interesting one we run with a few customers both in Europe and North America is related to vehicle to network, automotive industry, multiple type of slicing that is used for IoT, for the operation system of the cars, EMBB for the multimedia, and another dynamic slicing for dashcam application with another partner that we brought into this ecosystem that talks to the edge actually in a very low latency manner to report the drivers in the close proximity about hazards and pedestrian in the way. So really exciting stuff, and we have all of it running in our lab. We'll be happy to progress the industry in this direction.
Interesting. Well, listen, Manny, thank you for joining me today and providing an update on where we are with Zerotouch and cross-domain orchestration. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more about this, and I think a lot of the service providers that you're talking to are going to start their strategies to move this way. So it's a very exciting time of where we are right now. So thanks for joining me today and providing us an update.
Sure, definitely, Jim. Thanks for the opportunity.